Welcome back to the Two Eejits Talking Fitness podcast. I'm Eejit1, Jack McGailey. Over here beside me is Eejit2, Keith O'Rourke.
What's up, everybody?
Today we're joined by Conor Nolan. Now, Conor Nolan is the co-founder of Normal Mental Wellbeing Project. He's the author of the book Normal, and he's a fellow who spent years going into schools, colleges around the country talking about mental health, stigma, and specifically eating disorders in men. Now, Conor,
That's quite an intro, thank you. I'm flattered.
Well, we were doing a bit of research on you and your background and stuff like that before we hopped in, before we hopped in this podcast. And the most interesting thing that I found out about you today was just in the last 5 minutes that you're a Cavan man living in the pub.
Yeah. I keep that one quiet.
Well, we're about to go viral here, so you can't go back to Cavan.
This is I'm a qualified Eejit myself, so I mean, I do always say, like, I don't have your typical Cavan accent. What people think of a Cavan accent, because I'm from kind of like the border Leeds, from all that kind of thing. Then because I was in Galway for 4 years, I worked in Northern Ireland for a while. This hasn't gone anywhere. You know, the kind of way, because everyone's like, "Oh, you might sound different living in South Dublin." I'm like, "No, I could live in Moscow. This is going nowhere." Do you know what I mean? So yeah. So no, the roots are there, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah. But there are plenty of interesting things about you. So this is just the notes that we've got done up here. So fact check me on any of these if I'm going too far wrong. But you have a degree in theoretical physics.
That's correct.
Which you finished up in June 2021.
Yeah.
Then you walked into a data engineering job in an investment banking background.
Yeah.
The same month, your book Normal was published. You spent 4 years doing mental health talks, radio appearances, content as a side gig while working full-time in finance. You set up a project called the Normal Mental Wellbeing Project. I always mince up my words, and I'm like really fighting myself not to say
it's tough to say that. Yeah. No, you have it. Well done. You have
something. I was practicing with Keith earlier on. I was saying the normal mental. Like that's how I was starting.
Normal mental build.
Give us a bit of context of your background. So that's a serious journey, and you're not an old fella like Keith. No. Give us a bit of background as to like what we need to know about you before we get into the topics that we're going to be discussing.
No, sorry. Just the best. Sat down with you. It's a funny career path. Like, so I would have been, first of all, the reason why I do what I do, I was diagnosed with an eating disorder when I was 12. So that's kind of, it's very much, as I always say, my mental health journey started off young, too young, I say. But in school, I always loved maths, science, all that kind of stuff. So I said, you know what, I do a degree in physics, and whatever comes out of that is great. In my, latter part of school, would never have thought of working in mental health. I had, that experience in it, but never thought of it being something to do in terms of a job. And then I was in, my first or second year in college when I really started struggling with mental health again. And that was the first time that I spoke about it with friends and started being more open about it, because when I was diagnosed with anorexia the first time, I went to therapy and all that, got the help I needed, but I very much kept it under wraps and typical Irish fashion. Oh, don't tell anyone you're going to counselling, all that. Say you're going to the dentist or whatever, all this kind of stuff. And so I took an interest. This is when I would have been like second year of college, and I had this idea that I would write a book about my own journey and my own experience. Through a random series of events, I got the chance to self-publish a book about that experience. So I wrote that. That came out just as I was starting my final year in college. And I got invited to speak on the radio. This is during COVID. Spoke on the radio a few times. The first school I ever spoke in was in Ballyhaunis in Mayo. And I finished college and I remember thinking, like, mental health is what I love. But in the Irish fashion, there's a job here. Do you know what I mean? I'm after doing a degree. Don't want to waste that, all that kind of stuff. So I went into it was a financial consultancy I worked in. And I went into that thinking, yeah, this is good money and it's a good solid job, all that kind of typical jargon. And the corporate world is hilarious. You hear about corporate lingo. It's real. Like, there are people for whom that's their entire vocab, like ducks in a row and all that. And so I was thinking, right, this will be my job, and the mental health can be a passion project or a side gig or whatever it is. But I think, like, for anyone, I have a rule of thumb in terms of if you think you should leave your job, and that's if there is something that you know more about than all your managers put together. So, for example, if you work in an office but you love the gym, you should probably consider being a personal trainer or whatever it is. And so for me, I knew more about mental health and well-being, than anyone I worked with. I had a manager who really struggled with anxiety. We spoke a lot about that, all that kind of thing. And I was like, this is definitely whenever I talk about it, I kind of light up, you know. And the thing is, I did like my job, and again, I don't take that for granted, because to have a job that you like it's a privilege. So, and that's kind of, I suppose, why it took me 4 years to leave it, because I was like, well, I actually do enjoy this, don't want to throw it away. But I think it's like any kind of passion project, it eventually starts to become more center placed and all that kind of stuff. And I remember, like, so the Normal Mental Wellbeing Project, that was, we'd say, not this academic year gone, the previous academic year. And that was very much the lead up into me leaving the job, because I think I was in like 15 or 16 like schools and colleges in 1 year. And you start getting the comments from teachers being like, you should do this full time, that you're very good at this, all this kind of stuff. And that plants the seed in your head. And I remember thinking, this is right. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. And then it was around this time last year, it was really starting to get into my head, okay, I might want to do this full time. I went to a conference in Finland. I think everyone, when you leave a job, there's that kind of final moment of, this is it. I went to a conference in Finland with the kind of European project. So you're meeting all these like-minded people, great week. And then I came back, you have the holiday blues, number one, but then you also have like the work you love back to the work you like kind of blues. Sat there on the Monday and I was like, didn't get a whole pile done. Working from home, didn't do a tap. And then and then on the Tuesday, was sitting in a meeting, the corporate lingo was flying. I just sat there. Am I allowed to swear, am I?
Yeah.
I sat there and I went, oh, fuck this. And I had to fix something. And I said, you know what? I reckon there's giraffes out in Africa right now that have more interest in this than I have. And that was the kicker moment. But there was a friend of mine, Tiernan, who's would say on that project with me, and he was at me for a long time. Leave the job. So I made the decision. This was on a Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to pack it in. And on the Wednesday, he's doing a PhD in UCD. I was given a guest lecture to one of his classes on the Wednesday. So I was coming down to Dublin the Tuesday evening, excited to tell him the news. When I went for a pint, and before I could tell him, he just goes, I have a bone to pick with you. Oh, so all right. What have I done? People please, what have I done? And he said, I'm sick of watching you waste away in that job. If you don't leave that job, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Now, Tierran's a big man, right? And I went, well, we needn't come to blows, because I've decided, you're right, I am going to leave. And that was, we had about 10 pints that night. And I left the job not knowing what would be next. And I had done a bit of work with Bodywise, who I work with now, on, let's say, they were developing an in-schools program, and I was one of the, we'd say, people talking about lived experience. And the 2 weeks after I left my job, they were like, do you want to deliver our workshops for us? And I work with them full time now. So I was very lucky how it lined up very, very quickly. But like, thinking back to this time 12 months ago, things look incredibly different. You know what I mean? So it was, it's the best thing I ever did was taking that leap. And I think your calling will never leave you be. Like, when there's something you clearly should be doing, it'll be there, and it'll keep screaming at you until you eventually put it first, 100%. But it's a funny, because I go into schools, they're like, what's your background? I'm like, software engineering. They're like, what? You know, so it makes for good dinner party conversation, as the phrase goes. Not that we have them in Cavan, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I've actually never gone to the restaurant. You know when something's on your restaurant. Yeah. But you know, it's a funny story, all right, how it all happened.
No, that is absolutely incredible. And like you said, when you left the job 2 weeks later, that opportunity with Bodywise came up, and like, I'm a big believer in luck.
100%.
But I'm a big believer that luck has a definition, and that definition is when opportunity meets preparation. And you had that opportunity after years of preparation. So it's an incredibly lucky sort of time frame of it. But like, when the work has been done, and like, not only through, obviously studying it and building Normal Mental Wellbeing Project.
Well done.
And I didn't even have to read it off the screen. And then, as well as that, self-publishing your book Normal, and the lived experiences, and then teaching in schools, and then learning about that as you go. Like, obviously that's incredible. Chat to me about the book Normal. Like, what is that? So for anyone who hasn't read it.
So I was like, you know what? It was a case of, my thinking was, this is back in 2018 when I had the idea, and my big thing was, I always say, as bad as COVID was, the one thing COVID did was it forced mental health into public conversation because of how tough it was for everyone. So there was no dancing around it. Now, when I look at 2019 versus 2022 in terms of stigma, we're living in two different worlds. I think we made about 10 years of progress there in about 2 years. So when I think back, like, late 2010s, the stigma around mental health, again, especially for men, I thought to myself, if I write a book or create something which is very much authentic and it's my story, unfiltered, all the bad bits and so on, if I can do that, well, then another fella might be able to, tell his friend or his family member or partner what he's going through. So I think, if I go over and above, it might help another fella make the small step, kind of thing. And so I literally wrote about getting diagnosed with anorexia, the sort of the recovery journey, the impacts of counselling, some people call it therapy. I prefer the word counselling. It sounds a bit less clinical or whatever.
Mm.
And then kind of a big thing was living with that in rural Ireland and the kind of perception around that. The reason why I called it normal was because I grew up, again, like a nice area, but a very kind of dogmatic thinking of there's one way to be. And if you aren't that, well, then something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think one of the great things about social media is I think we're now encouraging a bit more individual self-expression. That really wasn't present in my eyes in Ireland maybe 10, 15 years ago, especially in rural Ireland. So I always say this thing of like, a young man is not meant to have mental health problems, and he's meant to play football and drink pints, and that's it, kind of thing. Like, you know, not to be too blunt about it, but that was the sort of thing. And it was like I was, you know, had a mental health problem, struggled playing football, even though I loved it, wasn't a big drinker, wasn't the most social. So I was very different to sort of the template that was there. And I said to myself, well, I am who I am, and that's who I want to be, and I'm following my heart. So I either can blend in with everyone to keep the peace, or I can be myself. And it's like, well, I chose to go with the latter. So that's where I kind of pulled that title from, that kind of thing of like, well, oh, it's not normal to struggle with your mental health, but surely if we looked at it that way as part of life, as a friend of mine put it, the brain is a piece of meat with electricity going through it. How is that ever not going to go wrong? Do you know? And then kind of about, you know, open up about mental health in college and the sort of ripple effect that had of once I spoke to one person about my mental health and what I was going through, they then felt the safe space to speak about whatever was bothering them, you know, anything it might be. So it was very much a case of putting all that on paper. The way I wrote the book was, it was like a conversation between me and another character that I called the stranger, who's not a real person, just kind of made up. And because I wanted to put the art of conversation on the pedestal it deserves. That was my thinking for the book. But it was very like, because people have asked me, they're like, is this real? I'm like, the conversation isn't real, but every story, every anecdote is real. Do you know, that kind of way? Like,
Yeah. No, that's absolutely incredible. And like, even just listening to that now, I haven't read the book, so I haven't done an incredible amount of research, but like, even just that story alone, I'd encourage anyone who's feeling that little bit of overwhelm with, you know, maybe their mental health, or maybe potentially if they're worrying about an eating disorder, to go and read it.
Yeah.
You know,
big time. And even just like self-publishing a book, like, is an incredible thing to be able to do.
It was funny how it happened. So I had the idea, and then about 6 months later, a friend of mine, Tiernan, who was really behind the idea, he's like, come here, my godmother lives over in London, she's invited us over for a weekend, you know, come on over. And she had self-published a book herself about, like we say, entrepreneurship for women. She's a business of her own. And he had told her about my idea, you know, on the quiet. And we're sitting having dinner. It was the 13th of June 2019. I'll never forget this till the day I die. And we're sitting there, and she's like, you're writing a book, I hear. And I started sweating. It was like on Dragon's Den. I told her about the idea. I was like, yeah, I want to do this. And she said, right, if you can write that in a year, I'll pay for you to be self-published. And I was like, deal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was in pure shock. But it was like, to her, that was such, I always say this phrase, an offer from a sage and a king is more than just silver and gold. It's a seed of hope and a bud of faith. To her, this was a small gesture. To me, this was life-changing. Do you know? So I wouldn't be here without that support. I wouldn't be here without that opportunity. But like, when I got it, I grabbed it by the neck. I was like, oh, I've got one chance. There was very little sleep got there for 12 months, but it had to be done.
Yeah.
So it was funny even how that happened, like, you know, 100%. Very, very lucky.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to reading, because I have it ordered now, and I was going through the reviews and everything, and some of the reviews on the book are incredible. Like,
yeah,
if it goes to Amazon,
I reading some of them.
they really are. Like, some, like, the people that they're talking about, how open and vulnerable, like, even people that aren't Irish get such an insight into Irish culture growing up because
100%.
of how vulnerable you are in the book. So like, I genuinely, because we kind of like, it was a quick turnaround you coming on the podcast now, I'm really looking forward to like listening to it afterwards, and maybe having you on again and talking about it even more.
I'll not hit that next time. No, because like, even someone said to me once, they were like, do you worry about, you know, like, you're being very open and vulnerable here, do you worry about what people might think about that? And I was like, well, come here, if someone's going to look at me differently because of my mental health journey, that's not my kind of person anyway. That's are you a fan of Mickey Flanagan, you know, the comedian? Do you ever hear of him?
Yeah.
He has a sketch where he talks about he's almost saying hello to people. He's like, he lives in an estate. He's like, you've got 3 doors either side. They're your neighbours. You say hello to them. He's like, beyond that, fuck them. And I'm like, in life, you have your 3 doors either side, which is like your friends, family members, your colleagues, acquaintances. You're going to care what they think. That's natural. Beyond that, fuck them. If you're going out there to do your best and do right by others, if someone doesn't like you, that says more about them than you. So that was very much the mentality I had of, and I think the fact I wrote the book very young, you know, pre-frontal lobe development, like I was 21, I think I was young and naive enough to be like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. Whereas if I wrote it now, I might be a wee bit more conservative. So I'm glad I wrote it when I did, when I was a bit more raw and unfiltered per se. Yeah,
more open and vulnerable completely. Not that you're not at the minute, but like you said, that you're not thinking about it. That's
not at all. I was like, I'm going to say this, and then whoever doesn't like it, well, fuck them. Do you know, that kind of thing. Like.
Yeah. And come here, with I guess one of the main reasons we kind of wanted to have you on today and talk to you about was obviously you are super vulnerable, super open and super vulnerable with your journey.
Yeah.
And I think that journey of eating disorders in men is one that we just don't hear a lot about. It's one that's not talked about a lot. When, like, I would say 9 out of 10 people, when you say eating disorder, they immediately think, oh, it's something that like women struggle with because of like body image issues and, you know, what they're expected to look like online. And that's just getting worse and worse and worse with the expectations for females. But it's also there for men just as much, but maybe just less talked about, hidden under the surface, because it's like, oh, you're a big, strong man. You shouldn't be talking about that. You shouldn't be thinking that.
100%.
What if, again, within your own level of comfortable, what was that like for you when you kind of like were diagnosed, or what was that feeling like for someone that maybe could be going through it but doesn't realize they're going through it?
So there's a few things. So again, I don't want to misquote numbers. I think it's something like, we'll say for eating disorders in general, 1 in 3 cases will be male. So again, still more common among women, but a lot more common in men than people realize. When I was first diagnosed, that number was quoted as being something like 1 in 10. Now, there's a chicken and the egg thing here, which is, are eating disorders getting more common in men, or are we just getting better at catching it? Are more men coming forward? You know, that kind of thing. Like, but what really helped me was, so I was diagnosed in 2011. One of the first things I was told in counselling was, you know, now I hadn't even heard of, like, it was anorexia I had specifically. I had never heard of it before. I'd never heard of an eating disorder, but my therapist said, look, you may have heard this spoke about in a female context. I promise you this happens among men. You are not the only man with this. And that was very comforting at the time to be, you know, that was a great sense of perspective of you know, the one thing I think for everyone is with mental health in general, knowing that you're not alone in it. Do you know what I mean? And like, even as well, like in the work I do with Bodywise, I'd say talking about like, let's say poor body image, like the amount of people who struggle with that is monumental. So if you are in that boat, you're not alone in that boat. So I was very lucky that I didn't feel that sense of, I suppose you could say, alienation by any means. And it's interesting, you know, when you say there about, it makes sence that people would associate it with women, because first of all, when we talk about eating disorders, there are many of them, but anorexia is probably the one that people know about the most. And anorexia does involve things like over-exercise, restriction of food intake, and weight loss. So whenever we hear eating disorders, we automatically think weight loss and being underweight and so on, which isn't the case, right? Not every eating disorder is the same. And the reason why it makes sense to think of that in the female context is women were given this idea that, oh, skinny is beautiful. And again, that moved then to more towards gym culture. Now it's going back. It's, as I do always say to young women, I say, the fact that the perfect body keeps changing, that's your proof that perfect is bullshit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there was pressure on women to be thin. So it would make sense that a woman would develop an eating disorder because it lines up with the sort of expectations in terms of, we'd say, social pressures. But in terms of how it felt, it's far more than just food. I always say that the term eating disorder is a bit misleading, because whatever's happening with food, exercise, or those behaviours, that's what's on the surface. That's what you see. But that's very much like symptomatic of what's happening underneath. So people think like, well, the way to get over this now is to, you know, feed them back up. That's like trying to fix an oil leak by putting more oil in the car. The leak is still there. And the art of patching that leak and fixing it is working on what's going on in here, because you have any number of risk factors for an eating disorder development. Poor body image is one. Bullying is another. Low self-esteem is a big one. And the more I've worked on myself, I've realised that's probably what caused it in me. Not feeling good enough, feeling something is missing, and then trying to compensate for that. So somehow feeling better when you're over-exercising, when you've starved yourself, whatever it might be. And so it is very all-encompassing. It's much more in the mind than people realise. And the way I look at it is, if you think about anorexia, one of our primal instincts is to feed ourselves and eat. How powerful must something be to overcome that and override that? And so it's very, and would say recovering, this is one of the problems in sort of the clinical or health sector, is recovery is viewed as getting the person back to a healthy weight. That's about 10%. Of course, that is the physical element of it, but there's so much work that has to be done up here. And I've learned that like, I was 15, 16 thinking, oh, sure, I'm out of the woods now, I'm recovered. Not a bit of it. The relapse risk is there. You have so much work that you have to keep doing up here. Like, I've noticed one of the things that can really trigger an eating disorder is a period of change. And I'm a token example of that, because I developed the eating disorder at the age of 12, so started secondary school. I then had problems starting college, starting my job, and I would say would have went through a few things last year, leaving my job as well. So any big change has rattled me. And even though in the later times there was no issues with weight loss or food or body image, the same kind of thought patterns would arise. So I kind of had the self-awareness to go, okay, this goes much deeper than just food. It's how we view ourselves. It's what we think about ourselves. It's, in some sense, how we perceive ourselves within the world around us. So I think a big thing in men is, I think for men in general, this is something I want to be more content about myself, is if we can work on building self-esteem, I believe that will help with a lot of problems, particularly with, say, eating disorder risk and that kind of stuff. So it's a very frightening thing to live with, because on some logical level, you know what you're doing isn't right. You know, this isn't, 2 + 2 is not making 4. I'm not eating enough to support the amount of movement here, but I can't stop. So it's like you have these emotions. What you're doing in terms of food or exercise, it's giving you a way of handling them. And if you stop those behaviors, so if you eat more and if you look after yourself, you now have no outlet for those emotions. And that's what we'll say the recovery journey gives you. That's what therapy gives you. How can you deal with those emotions in a healthy way so you can step away from those harmful behaviors? So I always say, like, counselling is the reason I'm sitting here today. And I always say, no matter what's happening up here, you can, I don't want to say cure or fix, but I like thinking of it as like rewiring, seeing things differently, because the amount of harmful thought patterns I've had, eating disorder and otherwise, that therapy has helped me work through and make sense of. So it's an incredibly frightening thing to live with. But if anyone is listening who's struggling with something like that, you can recover. You absolutely can. It is possible. I'll name drop Bodywise there. If anyone is struggling, you can talk to our supports there. But yeah, it's frightening to live with, 100%.
And the way you kind of phrase it there, I think, is, because I've seen you talk about it in your content as well, where it's not necessarily recovering is like you're out of the woods, you never have to deal with it ever again. It's more a case of like, you have the tools, and you just mentioned there, the self-awareness to realize when maybe the triggers are coming on, or when it's, you're feeling those thoughts, you're hearing those thoughts, you're having those conversations in your head, and you have the tools to manage it.
Yeah.
Rather than just being like, oh, I never have to deal with that again. Because then I think people almost set themselves up for, fuck, I'm dealing with this issue again.
Yeah.
And it's like, you feel worse about it because you feel like you're not, like, I've done all this work and I'm still dealing with it, Yeah,
so that's why, I would never use the word, I would use the word recovered. Like, I could sit here and say I've recovered from anorexia in the health sense, in terms of relationship with food. I don't think anyone ever uses the word cured, because the relapse risk is there. I know what triggers are there that could send me back down that rabbit hole. But thankfully, I have the tools. I speak to a therapist fairly regularly, or say at different time intervals. So I know what to look out for. But the risk of that is always there. Now, when I was in counselling when I was 13, no one said to me, oh, by the way, this can happen again. They were probably right. Because if they had said to me, okay, you're out of the woods, like you're 13 a year, so about 9% of your entire life has been spent in the trenches here. This can happen again. If I'd been told that, I'd be like, life's not worth living. Like, there's no way I can go through all this again. So I can see why I was, in some sense, kept in the dark there for good reason. The young mind probably can't take that. Whereas, as you get a bit older, like, I remember being told in counselling, like, you have to live with this for the rest of your life. You have to live with the possibility that this might arise again, and you have to work through these thought patterns. And it took a long time to accept that and go, well, you know what? This is my cross to bear. This is my ailment. And it's been, I suppose, reassuring to realise that anytime these things happen, the help is there. I can address it. And, if I pulled through it before, I can pull through it again, 100%.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah.
And like, I suppose this is coming away from the notes of our order, but so if we look at this and we just take this as sort of like a, as anorexia being a diagnosis, so what we would look at is the signs to look out for, the tools and the processes and the counselling that you go through, and then the recovery. Could we just get a bit of a time, not a timeline, but I suppose, and it's going to be more nuanced to this, but like a start to recover. What are the signs that someone should be looking out for to say, right, maybe this is something that's an eating disorder that I have, and that I should go and get help? Because I suppose even myself as a fitness professional, I wouldn't be able to recognise the signs if it was in myself.
No, 100%.
So what signs should someone be looking at?
So, well, first of all, I won't say it about timelines, because again, every case can be different. That's a big thing there. No, you're dead right to ask. I was lucky in the sense that, like, it was a very quick descent, and we'll say getting the weight back on. That I was lucky in that sense. But again, every case can be different. My interpretation or my experience is that it can be anorexia in particular can be worse in girls. That's the way it was phrased to me. But in terms of the signs, so one of the things we say, like I say in the work I would do with Bodywise in schools, is people would say, well, how do I know if I have an eating disorder, and how do I know which one I have? And I say there, if you think about your physical health, you'd never try and diagnose yourself with anything. You talk to a doctor or whatever it is. You don't go, oh, do I need a fill-in? You go to the dentist, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we say to people, don't try and diagnose yourself, but rather ask yourself, so what are the warning signs? So in terms of someone in themselves, any difficult feeling at all, any sort of negative emotion around body image, around food, your relationship with exercise, I'm not saying that's the presence of an eating disorder, but it's a slight problem. So you can speak to your doctor, you can speak to a counsellor, you can speak to one of our helplines, whatever it is, and it might only be a very small issue. But at least you're that phrase, nipping it in the bud, you're sorting it out. Because one of the big things with eating disorders in general is early intervention. If you can get in the door quick, that's a great help. But in terms of signs, it would say looking at someone from the outside looking in would be if someone is like skipping meals, if someone can't rest, if they're like, especially for example, if someone gets injured and they're trying to push through it, that's, ask the question there of, are you eager to make progress or is something else happening here? Because logically speaking, if you're an athlete, for example, you understand if I'm injured, there's recovery protocols to go through and then I can get back on the horse and push forward. If someone is trying to keep up training intensity while they're injured or during a very busy period in life, for example, a work period or whatever it is, it's kind of like, well, why is it that you can't take a day off? And the key thing there is the idea of looking after yourself in a healthy body image or in an eating disorder, we'd say aware context. It's not about taking the foot off the gas. It's not about because people look at it and go, this is very wrapped in cotton wool. This is very against the win at all cost mentality. It's like, no. You can push yourself and try to improve at all costs, but at the same time, understanding when to rest and having that good relationship with that. And so if someone can't take a day off, if they feel very guilty when that happens, another thing can happen as well is if you're giving them kind of a nutrition plan and they're trying to cut bits out of it themselves, or they're trying to get leaner faster or whatever it is, that can be the slight warning. And again, not all of these are, we'll say, eating disorders in themselves, but they're slight warning signs to be wary of. Because again, it's not black and white of you have it or you don't. Yeah. There's the sort of warning signs. Like for me, in terms of the run up to getting diagnosed, I wanted to be a great footballer. I wanted to be fit for that reason. And then all of a sudden you're less concerned about putting the ball over the bar and you're more concerned with you're weighing yourself or God, this is before, well, we don't have Fitbits in Cavan anyway, but this is before, this is before for tax reasons. This is before the whole steps thing. You're kind of like, well, how long did I spend training today? And 5 minutes more tomorrow and 20 calories less. Do you know? And then what happens is, you get backed into a corner because you're trying to always do more. So you're always trying to move more and eat less. And all of a sudden you get to a point where you can't, like I have no idea how many calories I was on by the end, but it was fuck all. Do you know what I mean? So you're getting backed into a corner there. So there's little signs. And again, it's not up to any personal trainer or coach to diagnose and sort it out. But I would say if you are noticing this, mention it to someone, they can then, speak. And if you are mentioning to them, be very specific about what you've noticed. Because if you're very specific, they can't go, oh no, I'm fine. And you're like, no, A, B, and C I've noticed. If you just go, oh, I'm worried, they can brush that off. But if you say, I scheduled a deload week and you push through, like, what's happening there? And in some cases it could be that they're just eager to get to the finish line. But sometimes there can be more happening. And again, we're actually working on something in Bodywise at the minute. We'll say like body image and gym culture and that kind of like that advice for coaches. So that is something we're working on now. But yeah, it's not up to a coach to diagnose, but just recognize these signs and then we'll say kind of signpost accordingly, like 100%.
Yeah. And I think even sorry to jump in, but from a coaching perspective, I think that's a great initiative you guys are working on because I know there's a coach over in the UK. I think he's actually called the mental health coach, or the mental health coach. Is
it mental health PT?
Yes.
Yeah, him. Yeah, very good. Yeah,
very good. So he's literally developed like a training for coaches just to become aware of signs of whether it's mental health, like poor mental health with clients you're working with, because it can be we see it all the time with coaches where they're just like, they're trying to diagnose clients with, some kind of mental health disorder. They're trying to deal with the issue themselves. And it's like, you're a personal trainer. Like we're coaches. Like, yeah, we've got our coaching qualification, we've got nutrition, whatever, but like, we're not mental health specialists. Yeah. You can be a support for people, but if you're seeing these kind of signs, like you said, maybe just point it out in the right way. And then if hopefully you have the right places to help send them, that they can go and seek the right kind of support. So like you said, even what you guys are working on Bodywise, if that's some kind of a support for coaches to know how to handle these kind of situations.
100%.
If they're aware of it, that'd be an incredible resource.
It's like
for a
that
lot of
phrase,
coaches.
it's like you don't have to know everything, but you have to know who knows what.
Yes.
So it's like you don't have to fix the problem, but can you send them, whether talk to their GP, speak to a counsellor, or would say go to one of our helplines, whatever it might be. You're kind of pointing them in the right direction in that sense. But yeah, it's not all, because again, and it shouldn't be all beyond coaches. But I tell you, when I was competing in powerlifting, a guy called Martin Reedy was my coach. Absolutely phenomenal man. Like, as in, I'd always say, like, when Martin was giving me a leg session, if he was like, right, 3 sets of 10 on squat and then go out and kill a man, I'd be like, yeah, like, as in, because he had done such great things in powerlifting. Like, he was a great mentor. So like that, it was like a coach you'd follow into war kind of thing. And when we had our first, we'll say, onboarding call, he asked me, he was like, can I ask you, how's your mental health? And I was like, well, look, I have a history of this, that, and the other. I do suffer with anxiety, but I'm speaking to a therapist. He's like, that's good. He was like, I have people, he's like, sometimes people will come to me and they're struggling with something and they're not really doing the work to kind of figure it out. He's like, so it's good that so he wasn't fixing it, but he's like, are you talking to the right people and all the rest? And he then would say, like, when we were working through, like, we'll say, doing the your macros and so on, he was keeping an eye out for certain things. So I was, again, hell-bent on performing at my best. And my relationship with myself and body image and food was perfect, but I was just kind of hell-bent on doing everything right. And I asked him one day, I was like, is coffee like dehydrating? Should I stop drinking coffee? And he was like, easy now. He's like, be careful with this. He's like, this is, coffee is something that we all enjoy. You work in an office, it's everywhere. Do you know what I mean? He's like, in an ideal world, everyone drinks nothing but water, but this is not an ideal world. Do you know, he's like, so, like, enjoy it. Like, it's not going to hinder performance at all. Now, I can say hand on my heart, I was asking that question from a performance point of view, but he was very, very good at being like, no, why are you asking this question? And don't be worrying about it. This has a microscopic impact on performance. So he was right there, and he wasn't being a therapist. He was just giving me the right guidance there. So that again, because when you're talking with Oisin Mulligan, you're talking about good coaches who care about you, and and if you can find one of those, incredible. So I'm lucky to have had that experience as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I definitely be the same. I've got a couple of clients who've been open with me about their mental health and struggles and stuff. And like, it's the same. And when they ask me a question, I'm like, why are you asking this question? 90% of the time it's because I seen this on Instagram or TikTok, and you're just, you're like, no, good advice. It's like, should I be taking electrolytes? You probably not. Something along those lines. But then there's the odd time you're like, let's go and...
It's more than just curiosity.
Yes. And I suppose just while it's fresh in my head as well, is that I know we're saying as coaches, like, we're not looking to recognize signs in anybody that comes in. Like, we don't think that if someone's coming to us to lose weight or get in shape, and we're thinking, right, do these have an eating disorder first, unless, they mention us to us, whatever. But it's also really important that if you're someone who's listening to this and you're like, that's not me. This is a waste of time for me listening to this podcast. It's also, you have a duty of care with your friends and your family and the people around you to potentially notice signs in them that there just 100%. Might be something off. And like you said, it's not a case of saying, I think you're going to hell for leather with your health and fitness. You probably have something wrong with you. It's like,
and that's not the case.
Let's get specific.
Yeah. 100%. And that's one thing I found as well is like, there's a sort of friction of, we'll say, looking after yourself from that standpoint and pushing the body. Can they exist hand in hand? And I'm like, well, I can sit here myself, having competed in powerlifting, having, gone to the All-Irelands, that kind of stuff. Like, there can be a healthy mix of both. You can, because I imagine there are a lot of people who develop an eating disorder and they're athletes and they want to get back on the pitch for the love of the sport, and they can feel a bit held back. Like, you can go through an eating disorder or whatever it is. It doesn't mean that you're made of glass. You can still come out of that and perform at a high level, but it does mean that you have to just keep an eye on things. So it's we're not saying stop completely. We're saying have that bit of caution, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. So yeah, that's the last thing I want is people to go, oh, this is very like wrapped in cotton wool thing. No. You can still achieve your health and fitness goals. It's just kind of that bit of caution for, as you say, the one case in whatever it is where there might be, we'll say, a slight issue and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think even one of the things I think with social media that good in a way, especially like you said, over COVID times where we are much more aware of whether it's if people are dealing with anxiety, feelings of like feeling anxious, or if it is an eating disorder, that people are more aware of it or more conscious of it. They're being diagnosed more, which is great. But then you see the flip side of that where someone does a video where they're talking about like, hey, I'm in really good shape and here's how I track my macros, here's what I'm doing. And then you have people in the comments being like, oh, you just have an eating disorder. It's like,
that's not the case at all. Yeah. Now, the one thing, like, some people say, there are people who say like they found that tracking their food, will say, wasn't great for them. Again, everyone's different. Yep. But no, like, as in, I can say, like, as a powerlifter, like, I tracked my food, but I very much had the mentality of, I know why I'm tracking, and I know it's because of either bulking or cutting or winter competition. And then in the off season or time off, I could then look at food in like this healthy manner of like something to be enjoyed, have a take or go to a restaurant. So it's that thing of like, can you hold both in your head? Can you view food as the fuel for your training and whatever your fitness goals are, but also view it as, when the time is right, something to enjoy with friends, family, a partner, whatever it is. So no, there is that thing of like, because there's almost like an anti-exercise kind of thing, like, and this is, again,
pushing it too hard.
Yeah, and this is what kids will say, body image and eating disorder awareness a bad name. It's like, no, you can still, like, you're not going to be a great powerlifter, or we'd say something in a weight class sport. You are going to have to track your macros. And even if you're just playing like a team sport where there's no weight classes, like a rugby or GAA, you still have to eat the right things and train hard. Absolutely. It's the love of the sport. Like, I'm sure the Mayo lads were pushing things fair hard, and like that went very well. So there is that. It's not black and white. People go like, oh, if you've got MyFitnessPal, you've got an eating disorder. As someone who's had it, it's far more than that. Like, that's you're all right with that. Don't worry about that. Like, So there is that kind of fear mongering there. Yeah. So there's a balance in the middle.
And again, I think you're a great example of that, in the sense of you've competed in powerlifting. You're a feckin' strong man. You've probably seen some of the videos and stuff of it. So like, I think that there's people. It takes away that idea of like, oh, you've got an eating disorder, like you just can't. You have to be super soft and cautious, and you're like, no,
not
like
at all. No, you exactly. You can pull through. It's funny because like, I don't compete anymore. I'm 27 now, and I last competed when I was like 24, and I love being like, they're like, can you lift that? I'm like, in my prime, I could. You're Thierry Henry in my prime.
Wait till you hit Keith's age.
I'm only fucking 33. Will you relax?
33. That's World Cup's away from our
baby. Absolute baby.
Jersey you wear.
Gee, this is the jersey back in the day.
That is a lovely jersey.
I was just going to say, this man, the reason we wore the jerseys today was this man is a jersey enthusiast, self-proclaimed jersey enthusiast in the actual bio.
It's not a qualification, but yeah. I was in Galway a few years ago, and I bought the Czech Republic jersey for 2006 World Cup, and it was like big long stand. I pulled it out and I was like, oh, that's the World Cup in 2006. And your man was like, you know your stuff, and I was like, oh, you have no idea. you have no idea. Yeah. But I think part of it is, I think like there's been if you go to music festivals now and concerts, you see them everywhere. I think part of it is like nostalgia. Like, this is obviously from like
classics,
like from when we were kids or whatever. Well, not you would have been older, but like I'm going to have on, but no, sorry, but no, I think there's a bit of that. It's like, I have a few Liverpool jerseys from like the late 2000s of like, when you first started watching, I was like, oh, that was from the first Champions League final I watched. So there's a nice bit of like nostalgia in there as well. Yeah, that's where that comes from.
Big time. I think the jerseys from the 80s for me are like the prime. They're just like the nicest. Those baggy ones, like any of the new ones that are like super tight player fit ones and stuff, like you just like the big baggy oversized. Those kind of heavy. The jersey, like the old GAA jerseys where if it rained, it felt like you were carrying an extra like 10 kilos. Because there's like super
they were holding on to water.
Super heavy cotton.
Before we get into the next segment here, I don't know what track we're on now, but we're getting there. You've done something very interesting in the last couple of weeks. That's why I wore the Mexico jersey.
Yes. Yeah.
You had some balls to do this. You could have fucked everything up for them.
Yeah. I could have jinxed it. Like, I could have refueled the curse. I was like thinking to myself, so I have a particular love for like, we'll say, Adidas jerseys. It was called the Team Jice template. It was from the World Cup in 2006, and it had like a resurgence in recent years. They've like re-released it. So I was looking for like, I wanted to find like a template in the Mayo colours and then slap on a crest and whatever else. But basically Adidas only have X amount of colours, the luminous green and so on. I was like, okay, what'll I do? Have you seen that film The Devil Wears Prada by any chance? Yeah. So I felt like Miranda Priestly. I was like, what's my fashion knowledge here? So I was like, yeah. I was like, And so I like, so I was like, oh, Mexico have Mayo colours. I was like, well, Mexico were Nike in 2006, but they were Adidas in 2007. So it's a Mexico jersey from 2007 that I bought on eBay, which is like €75. It came from Ukraine. I don't know who in Ukraine had a Mexico jersey, but anyway. So I was like, I bought that, and then I was like, okay, how do I Mayo this up? I was like, I'm not going to cut off the crest. That'll ruin the jersey. I could put like an Elvery's on it, and I was like, because the font I got is like the official Adidas font. So I just bought Sam 26. And I my first thought was, well, I iron it on if they win. I'm like, no, because like we'll be out, that's too late then. So I was like, okay, so I bought it was €110 for the whole lot, because I'd buy the font and then iron it on. And I was like, if they win, this will be the best bet I've ever placed in my life. If they lose, it'll be a piece of memorabilia. I was in a pub called Kennedy's there near Croke Park on Sunday, and I got mobbed. Everyone was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And then someone was like, I think I've seen something like that on TikTok. I'm like, no, this is the thing
This
you
is
saw
the-
on TikTok. Yeah, like, there's only one of them, like, you know, like, is that you? I'm like, that is me. And yeah, no, it was risky, but I'm proud of it. Like, I'm going to frame it. I'm like, it's a souvenir to have. Because my mother was like, would that be worth money now? I'm like, no, it's just a jersey. Like, do you know what I mean? And then some people were in the comments like, can I buy one? I'm like, no, you can't. You can do what I did and buy it and print it on, but I can't produce them. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, it is. I was happy with it. Like, it was nice to combine the two loves in that sense. Like, yeah, but it's a souvenir forever.
Was thinking about that there now. I was going to say this joke, but I'm too mature for that, so I'm not going to say the joke. Like, what the joke is,
yes, go on.
I was just thinking there when you said you were from Cavan, and then it's like it seems to me like the most Cavan thing in the world.
Yeah.
Only you said the price of it.
Yeah.
The price is dearer than actual shit.
It looked like, oh, I don't want to buy a mule jersey. I do want to have. No, I went out of my way. Yeah. No, but it was funny because everyone was like, is that a... It is, yeah. And then one of that's like, oh yeah, Cinco de Mayo.
No, that is brilliant. I was just thinking there, I was like, that is the most like rural Ireland Cavan man thing.
Yeah.
Who's supporting me. I just don't want to buy a meal.
Yeah.
I already have one. Yeah. But it was so funny though, because like I seen that video when you first posted it, and I don't think I was following you at the time. And then when Carol linked us up, and I went to your page, I was like, why do I recognize this lad's face? And I seen the video, I was like, there, it's he's the one that's on the jersey.
But it was funny, like, cause I was in the pub and like, Mayo jerseys everywhere. Where are you from? Galway. Where are you from? Donegal. I'm from Carlow. I'm like, there's no actual Mayo people here. Everyone was just on that kind of, not even bandwagon. We were all rooting for the one thing, like. But yeah, no, it was special. Like, I have friends who are still at the homecoming. Like, they'll be
drunk for the week.
Oh man, for a month, I'd say. But anyway, best luck to them.
Dead right. Well deserved. And come here. Speaking of your content on going back into what we're talking about today, your content is fantastic.
Thank you.
In terms of like the message you're trying to spread, but like the way that you do it, in the sense of it's so easy to watch and consume, and also teaches you so much, which I think is the best form of content when it comes to these kind of topics, where sure, you could sit down in front of a camera and be like, here's my experience with an eating disorder, here's what it looks like, here's the signs, here's the symptoms. You can do all that. Or the way you do it, where you do it in these little skits. That's funny, makes me want to watch every time it pops up. I'm like, oh, class, another one. But at the same time, every single video I've watched of yours, I've learned something from watching it. Which, like, is that why did you decide to do it in that kind of like funny, interactive way? Versus...
So it started off the more kind of, not even formal, but like the kind of more, we'll say, just talking about the thing.
Educational kind of.
But funny enough, what kind of started it was, or what gave me the idea, back during COVID, I had a Snapchat private story, which was like, kind of just, I was like, I'm going to entertain my friends. And it ended up where like friends of friends were adding me on Snapchat just to get onto the private store. Like, I would review films and I'd do like home workouts, lifting the couch, or just stupid shit like. And remember, like, I met a fella after COVID. He's like, lad, that carried me through lockdown, like that. And I was like, oh well, humor is medicine, and I've been a fan of stand-up comedy my whole life. And so I was, and what I found when I first started making content is that people were liking it, but it wasn't growing. And again, it's not about numbers, but you do want to reach more people. And I said to myself, I was like, I found when I gave talks in person, it went down really well. I felt like the in-person talks and the content were, like, there was a discrepancy there in terms of how well they were doing. I was like, how do I make the content grow or be as well received as the talks itself? And my friend Tiernan, again, who's smarter than I'll ever be, he just looked at me and went, what's your niche? He was like, oh, and what's missing from the talks that you have on camera? And I was like, oh, it's humour. And yeah, so for example, like the skits about George being the eating disorder voice and he wears the Man United jersey and all this kind of stuff. I was thinking, like, someone will come across this and find it funny and they'll watch it for the humour without realising that they're actually learning something at the same time. And again, I know who I heard saying this, like, if you can make people laugh, you have their undivided attention. You know, humour is a communicator. And so, yeah, that was my thing of like, if I can do it in this informal way, and it also takes the kind of serious clinical sting out of it.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this important message, but you're doing it in a way that is accessible, that's digestible, that doesn't feel too heavy. Like if you scroll across one of my videos at 9:30 in the morning, it doesn't feel existential or whatever. It's like, oh, that's Conor, and oh, what's he talking about today? Do you know? So that's the kind of, I kind of found, as we were saying off air there before, that's the kind of style I found, and I'll be keeping it. Like and it means that when I made the switch from just talking about the thing to making it funny, I went from trying to think of ideas to having so many I can't record them. Like I've got a list of stuff I want to record, and it's actually finding the time. So that was helpful. It's like, oh, I truly enjoy now making a video. And, you know, for some of it, it'll be like, I made one there a couple of months ago. It was like Bob the Builder goes to therapy. And it was like, he's like, Robert, now you have to, you know, and it was just all, you know, so like some of that is just pure comedic value. But I enjoy, like, I thought I've one I'm going to make soon, which is like, you know, celebrities getting hard truths in therapy. And, you know, like, one of them could be like Liam Neeson being like, violence isn't the answer, Liam. Do you know, this kind of thing. But like, I was thinking about that yesterday in the car going, oh, this will be funny. And like, I find sometimes that when you're making content you enjoy, the ideas nearly come to you fully formed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a case of like, then kind of trimming them down rather than trying to build them up from the ground. So yeah, I find I enjoy that. And I find it's very well received. And like, TikTok is funny. Like, humorous content goes very well on TikTok. But there's also the downside of you haven't seen hate comments until you go on TikTok. Some of it is mad. I look at some of them and I go, you typed that and you thought, I'll post it. And again, I always go like, what, if your mother saw that now, what would she say? Do you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, no, I once I made that change, I truly started enjoying it a lot more. And if you're enjoying something, it'll go far better. 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's kind of like that, where you said you know, the talks you're given in the schools and colleges and whatnot versus the content was just not matching at the time.
Yeah, it wasn't the same.
It's very much finding the audience and what each audience wants and how to engage with each audience, and like engaging with people on Instagram. A 5-minute video talking in depth about things it's not the platform for it. Like, maybe post it on YouTube and people see your videos on Instagram and then they go to like a YouTube thing, or they go to see you in person and stuff like that. That's where they get the deeper kind of information.
It's also that thing of like, that was a big struggle as well, as you say there. It's going from the long form to the short form. So it was like that was a challenge for me. It's a
big topic for short form content.
Exactly. So that's your challenge there of how do you condense it? And that's, I suppose, a skill in itself. And it's like someone was saying about Jeremy Clarkson. He used to write for some newspaper, but he only had like a few words. And it's like, that's what made him a great speaker, was he had to condense so much. You basically remove all your filler words, remove all the shite, and condense down to the real stuff. So that was the challenge there. How do I take the complex and make it simple so it can be digested in a 40-second video or whatever it is? Yeah, 100%.
And I think even the framing of like George being the voice in her head, I love to put him in a United jersey as well. Just to really make him the
100%.
evil.
Yeah.
But like, even the framing that you have of it, like, I think I seen one of the videos where George is saying something about like, you know, oh, something didn't go well in work, so like, oh, you're unlovable, you know? And it's like, you're kind of like, oh, that's just George. He's just there all the time. I just learn to deal with him, you know?
100%.
Like, that even just that framing of if someone's hearing that, they're like, okay, that's what I hear in my head. You know, it's relatable for people that are going through that.
Yeah. And it's that thing of, it's like, you know, it's like an annoying housemate. You can't get rid of him, but you have to just kind of learn to make peace with it. And how do I live with this in as harmonious a way as possible? Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Just for context on that, you created George as like a part of you, but it's a completely different.
So it's to show how the eating disorder voice works. So it's like, one of the big things is when you have an eating disorder, you get caught up in like, there's something wrong with me kind of thing. It's like, no, it's like, it's a part of you. It's a set of emotions, and it manifests itself in thought patterns. You could call it a voice, let's say. And I must give a shout out to a woman called Sheila Nocton, because she's, I believe she called hers Janine. So I took inspiration from her there. So she led the pathway there for her. And so it's this kind of thing of like, you can separate what you're thinking essentially from what it's telling you. So when you have a positive thought, you're like, oh, that's me. That's authentically me. And when a very, very harmful what if or self-deprecating thought comes in, and like, okay, that sounds a lot more like George. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people might go like, that sounds a bit schizophrenic. It's like, no, it's not. It's just, it's having a relationship with these thought patterns and being able to go, you don't represent me. This is the condition I'm living with. But I can work through it. And so, yeah, it was a way of personalizing that and going, yeah, this is me. He's here with me as part of me, but you're talking to me. I struggle with him. I have to put manners on him and keep him in place. And then as well, I remember saying this to a parent once. I said, she was on about her daughter was, you know, very much in recovery, but having good days and bad days. And I says, the good days when you know, the relationship with food is good and you're sitting there having a family meal, I was like, you're talking to her. But when she has the bad days and she snaps back and doesn't want to eat or whatever it might be, you're talking to it. You're talking to the eating disorder, the voice, whatever it is. And so it's that separating the two. It's like, she wants to sit with the family and have this lovely meal. That's what she wants. The eating disorder wants something different. So on the bad days, that's when the eating disorder is kind of at the steering wheel and pushing things forward. And it's a bit, I suppose, you can think of it as well, like in terms of the effects of anxiety. you want to go out and enjoy this social occasion or enjoy a date or whatever it is, but it's then the anxiety wants to try and, anxiety, as I say, it actually wants to keep you safe, but it can do so in a way by actually holding you back from what you want to do. So it's separating you from those emotions in some sense. So I suppose in some sense it's taking the kind of logical approach to the emotional mind in some sense.
Yeah, no, when I was watching those bits of content, I thought that was absolutely incredible. So I just wanted to make sure that there was plenty of context.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Again, it's something that, like, again, I'm a personal trainer. There's no sort of like major qualifications here, but like even just that really just helps me sort of understand things and like how it can be affecting someone, and like why it's just, someone's having a bad day and then, someone's having a good day, and then why that is, just being able to separate that, I think is absolutely incredible.
A friend of mine phrased it brilliantly once. He said, it's about making the complex simple. So as you were saying yourselves when you were talking about Oisin Mulligan, it was like, everyone knows that they have to get their steps in and go to the gym and eat well. But doing that by yourself is a complex thing. And yourselves as coaches, you're helping people do that and in a way that integrates well into their life. So a young man like myself versus a parent of 3, that's 2 very, very different scenarios. It's like, anyone can say, oh, here's the calories, here's the steps, here's a program. A good coach, as you say, cares and helps you integrate that into your lifestyle and so on. So you've got the complex problem of incorporating fitness into your life. Your job then is to make the complex simple, help them with that. And as I always say, like a therapist is like a coach for your mind. So you've got this complex string of thoughts and they help you simplify it. Where does that come from? Why is this arising? Why do you feel this in this scenario, but you don't feel that in another scenario? So they're helping you make sense of all that. So yeah, making the complex simple on the percent.
Yeah. And I think even from our perspective as coaches, like you'll probably regularly see, definitely me anyway, and maybe Jack as well, like complaining online about like the difference between a good coach and a bad coach, and why it's so important, because not only is it dealing with your physical health, but it's going to have ramifications on your mental health as well.
100%.
And I think that when we're complaining about bad coaches online, it's not just like, oh, they're going to give you a bad program. It's that they can literally be the cause, or like if you're dealing with deeper issues that a coach can't deal with, if that coach isn't even aware of it and is just pushing through or giving you bad advice, it can just make things worse. And we've both definitely seen clients come to us where you're like, Jesus, you've been through a bad run with like previous coaches, with other coaches, and it's like, now we're trying to help deal with like what we can help you deal with, but then we might have to like refer you out to someone else to deal with the other issues that have been caused by previous experience.
That's one thing, is like, I say that we'd say coaches and therapists are similar in the sense that there's good ones and bad ones. Do you know what I mean? Like, the same way, like not every doctor is as good as the next. They've got the same qualification, but some are better than others. And so like a big thing we'd say when someone starts going to therapy is we say, like, if you don't click with your therapist, or you just don't like their way of doing things, go to the next one. And the same way, like, if a coach is making you feel worse, fucking scrap them and go to, like, find someone better. And when you do find the coach you click with or the therapist you click with, that's a priceless thing. And again, you could have that client for a number of years. So it is, and it's having that good relationship and understanding that, someone, I was thinking this when I was listening to your episode with Oisin, is that the similarity between doctors, say maybe solicitors, therapists and coaches, is that in all 4 cases, you might have people who are just there for the money, but the people who are there because they care are unbelievable. So whether it's helping people find justice with their health, or like I had one therapist who there was no empathy at all. I'm not saying that she wasn't good at her job, but there was no empathy. Whereas I've had other therapists where, like, you feel they would go to war for you. You feel they really, really care about what you're saying and all that, and that's a massive difference. Like those people could be equally qualified and know their stuff, but the delivery and how they're handling it is completely different, 100%. Yeah. So it's similar for coaches as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. Big time.
I think that's brilliant in terms of like the main piece of what we were looking to get out of this podcast. Conor, that was incredibly insightful. I suppose just before we get into quick fire questions, because I am incredibly looking forward to you answering some of these questions. But it's one of the questions that we have down here, and I suppose like we can always give a very small insight into each of this, is that if you could get one message about this topic to every man, potentially even any woman in Ireland, based on the conversation we've just had, what would it be? What, I suppose, have been each of our biggest take-homes from this conversation?
I would say there's a few things. I'd say, again, anyone listening, if you're in any way struggling with your mental health, getting better is possible. And I always say that one of the issues with how we speak about mental health is, if someone walks in that door right now and they've got their arm in a cast, we'll say, what happened to you? I was in a car crash or football or whatever, and I'm in the cast for 6 weeks, and then whatever physio. I've never broken a bone, so I actually don't know. And so you talk about the ailment, and then you talk about what's going to happen next. Whereas with someone's, would say, mental state, you might say, oh yeah, my friend is quite anxious. And that's just the way they are. They get very nervous in front of a full room, whatever. It's like, no, that might be how they are right now, but that isn't set in stone. They can work on that. I always give the example of, I've got a friend who is petrified of the thought of talking in front of people, whereas I find it quite natural. And I actually think, this is pure Cav and stuff here, but I think one of the reasons why I'm comfortable public speaking, I read at mass a lot as a kid. Right? I get whether it's against my will or not. Yeah. So I got very used to, at a young age, being in front of a big crowd, and it felt quite natural. And so, whereas my friend didn't. So where he'd be petrified in front of a full room, I'm not. So you've got the same scenario that is getting very different reactions out of two different people based on our experiences and so on. So it's like, whatever you're feeling or whatever your thought patterns are, that can be addressed, that can be improved upon. We're always, and it's that thing they call it neuroplasticity. Your brain is always changing, your brain's always adapting. So whatever you're thinking, you can, now it's slightly easier when you're younger. You not get set in your ways, but it does get tougher when you're older. But you can work through things, you can improve and change the way you think and how you feel about yourself. That's a big thing. So that kind of recovery is possible kind of message. Something I thought of recently is, and this is one of the most helpful things I've realized, is this might sound a bit harsh. Not everyone around you wants to see you do well. And that's an uncomfortable realization. So there's that thing of, there may be people in your life, in terms of you living the healthiest, happiest life you want to live, there may be people who have to go, in the sense, and whether that be a partner, whether that be friends, whatever it is, not everyone has your best interest at heart. And that might sound cynical, but it's something I've learned, that not everyone that comes with you will go with you. And learning that was brilliant, because you've got some people who will applaud and want to see things go well for you and who care about every bit of you. And then there's other people, misery loves company. So learning the difference in that has been a big thing for me, about who do I keep around me, who gets to be part of that journey. That was a big thing as well. So that's only something I thought of this week. It's a new bit of advice, but I think it's very, very important. But yeah, I think that message that things can get better, and I hate how cliche or kind of sanctimonious that sounds, but it really can. And for me, if I think back to being 13 in the pits of anorexia, to be like, if someone said to me, all right, in 14, 15 years time, this is going to be your whole career, you're going to be helping people be on the radio, I'd be like, don't take the piss slack. Yeah. But there can be massive changes. You never know what's around the corner, and you never know how different your life can look in the space of 3, 6 or months or a year. That's, I'd say, my message. Absolutely.
You want to echo anything there?
I think actually, you just reminded me of there's a clip that Tom Holland has. You know Tom Holland, the actor?
Yes.
Spider-Man?
Yeah.
He's a great clip, and it's not a new thing that he said, but he heard from someone else, and it's kind of, he encapsulated it very well. And he was talking about the difference between, when we talk about public speaking, the difference between, feeling anxious before going out to speak in front of a crowd versus feeling incredibly excited to go out and speak in front of a crowd.
Yes.
What's the physical difference in the two of them? It's not
very little.
Very little. It's like, okay, your heart starts beating, maybe your palms get a bit sweaty. That's the same as being like, if you're excited to go on a roller coaster, you're like, oh, I'm getting like a bit nervous beforehand out of excitement, versus are you super nervous to go on stage? It's kind of, the body might react in the same way, but the mind reacts very differently.
Yeah.
But like you said, that's teachable, that's trainable.
100%.
You can train your brain to be like, okay, here's the physical reaction I'm having. Now I could sit here and be like, oh, I'm really anxious and I'm really nervous. Or I could be like, no, I'm actually just excited. I'm pushing myself outside my comfort zone. I'm trying new things. I'm trying to learn something. So it's okay to feel this way.
Yeah.
And getting comfortable with that it's like, the more you do it, the more you train your brain to have that feeling, the less you feel anxious about it. And I'm not talking about anxiety, but the less you have that anxious feeling versus being more comfortable and excited 100%. To do that kind of thing.
That just reminds me of, I just thought of it, I was just smiling there because I thought of this meme, and it was like, someone was like, what's the word for being horny but not in a sexual way? And someone was like, you mean being excited? The whole vocab has been ruined, but that kind of thing. But no, you're absolutely right. It's that same physical reaction, and it's, in some sense, it's reframing. So that for
reframing,
me,
that's the word.
Yeah, so it's like that thing for me as well, of like, there's times even on the radio or in front of big crowds, there's that bit of nerves, and I kind of go, there's a phrase I love, never complain about a full plate when you always wanted to eat. So it's like, never complain about being busy when you always want to be busy, or you want to be working in this area, or whatever it is. So for me, it's like a big crowd and feeling nervous, but geez, isn't it great to be here? Isn't it great to be in front of a big crowd and, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that kind of how you view things. Again, that guy, Rory Sutherland, I mentioned when we were off air, this big thing of reframing, it's how we experience things, our perception is very much based like that on how we interpret it. So that was a big thing for me as well, even with accepting the whole anorexia. It's like, okay, I have to live with these thought patterns which are difficult to process, perhaps indefinitely for the rest of my life, but as a result of that, I get to do this work where I have this helpful insight and I can help others. And so looking at it that way, because if I keep looking at the negatives, I'll be like, oh, well, this is poor me. But if I look at the positives of, I get to pass this on and be helpful, well, that's a far better way of looking at it, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to be writing a load of things down here, but like I forgot that this is recorded, so I won't.
You don't have to write it down.
No, the big thing that stuck with me is like you said, that the brain is a piece of meat with electricity going through it. Like
100%.
there's so many things that could go wrong. Like how couldn't it go wrong? So I just think that's an absolutely incredible line for anyone who's struggling with like anything that's going on above the neck. You know, I think it's. But
we said above the neck, like no stigma here down. Someone's got a problem with their lungs, like, you know, I seen this meme was like, you're asthmatic or you're shit at breathing. Now, I've had asthma, so I can say that. Funny enough, interesting enough, the more I worked on my anxiety, the asthma actually went away. So you can grow out of asthma. But it's like, no stigma around having stomach problems, kidney problems, whatever it is. If anything, there's a world of like, I hope they're okay and how you're working through that. But once it goes from here up, and I think what's happening there is this idea that we are our brains, and if something is, I don't want to say wrong with our brain, but if we're struggling with something mentally, it's like, oh, well, then there's something wrong with you. It's like, if we can view the, like, I think we're going to get to a point at some point where it's just going to be health, not just physical and mental health, it'll be health in total. Because again, something I've learned as well is, if you're not in a good state mentally, that's going to have physical effects on your body. Like the effects of chronic anxiety, like, with chronic anxiety, again, I only learned recently that the word chronic means long-term, not necessarily severe. But when you're anxious, your amygdala has lit up, you've got a stress response. If that is happening all the time in your body, that's going to cause serious physical problems. Like I'm on anxiety medication now, basically to help with that. I was having low levels of anxiety all the time, even though I was speaking to a therapist, I was doing everything right, getting enough sleep. So I was prescribed medication basically for the sake of my physical health, because being in that constant state of anxiety can do damage to your body long term. So, like I'd always say, I say this to students, you know, people argue, oh, mind-body connection's a load of shite. I'm like, we've all had butterflies in our stomach. Nervous, sick feeling, debate over. Do you know what I mean? So that thing of how the two are very much interconnected. And absolutely, so much can go wrong with the brain, but we can work around it and we can improve on it 100%.
Yeah. I think that's incredible. Plenty to take away. From that.
I can't wait to read the book.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can't wait. I just wish we had more time before this podcast. So I could have read it beforehand, but I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it. It's due on Tuesday. So I'll have it from Tuesday and we'll be getting stuck in from there. So will we get stuck into some quick fire?
Yeah.
Before we close things out. Okay. We do this at the end, Conor, just to kind of get to know everybody a little bit more for the people at home.
Yes,
we do it at the start, but we like to loosen you out beforehand. This is a curious one for Cavan. Barry's or Lions?
Okay, T is T. Sorry. Unless it's fucking Tetley, because that's piss. I like
awful.
Super Value Home Brand does the job. Like real cheap, like Tetley or one of those shit fucking things. Yeah, you'd know that. But to me, if you put Barry's, Lions, and Super Value, I'm like, it's all kind of the one. So T is T. Yeah. It's a hot take, but
what's the black tea they have? The UK black tea. Whenever you go over to the UK,
it's
awful stuff.
Yeah, I know the one. Well, but you see, my thing is we've got proper tea here. This is, and as someone who lived in Northern Ireland for a long time, we there's better tea in the political here now. But you know when you're in the UK zone there of merchandise. We've got better tea here. We can edit that bit out now. Jesus, and not go home at all.
Chinese or shipper?
Chinese all the way, 100%.
Any particular one?
There's a very good one near the house now there in Dundrum.
I was going to say, any fancy one down in Dundrum now?
Yeah, no, there's one called Hong Kong or something like that. But yeah, because I think my view there is like, a chipper is what you would get if you're like, you've nothing for the dinner. A chipper will do rightly. A Chinese is like a treat. It's like something, it's kind of like you're going out. That's a proper takeaway in my eyes, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, like you run to the chipper, go for a Chinese. If you get what I mean. Like that's like
a bit of an experience more so than
100%. Yeah.
I've seen someone talk about this. Actually, I've seen a meme literally just yesterday about this, where a husband and a wife were talking, and the wife was like, "No, we had Chinese yesterday. We're not going to have Chinese again today." And the husband was like, "Why? They do it in China all the time."
But the funny thing is, like, Chinese food in actual China. It's not ours. But no, 100%.
Very different. As a jersey enthusiast,
okay.
What's the favourite jersey? If you had to pick one to put on the wall, not the Sam jersey now. Had to pick one.
You're asking Quentin Tarantino for his favourite film here. I did have this. The Zinedine Zidane jersey from the 2006 World Cup final, the white and red, the France one. Now I
jersey.
Yeah, my friends bought that for me. This is funny. My friends bought that for me as a real collector's item. Like they bought me Like it was over €100, was a real collector's item. And I had it for a couple of years, and I went to Electric Picnic once. We'll never go again, but I went once. It was the year the Arctic Monkeys were headlining. And now the jersey was fairly like tight on me, and it started pissing rain during the Arctic Monkeys. And in a whirlwind of adrenaline, I ripped it off me. And my friend was beside me. He was like, "We spent all the 20 €." So I had that. That was a real collector's item. If there's one I have on my list to buy, perhaps there's a few Real Madrid ones from the early 2000s, I would say. Yeah, I can't pick. I can't. Maybe, no, if I say the Liverpool third kit, 2006-07, it's white. It's white with a green trim. I'll go with that. I have that.
Oh, the one at the red or the green shoulder.
It's white with the green shoulder. That one. Yeah, I'll go with that one.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
I'll go with that.
Because you can tell your age when they're all 2000s jerseys instead of the favourite ones.
Yeah.
They're not going to be further back than that. Whether you're a drinker or not, well, bit of drink, you mentioned pints earlier. What's your favourite pint experience?
Right. Well, I don't drink pints. Well, I'll tell you what. Sorry, a pint of Cockburg is nice. I can stomach a Heineken if I have to act butch in the setting. But I would drink a vodka. But I would shamelessly drink. I've got into Hugo Spritz recently. Oh, Dublin's got me. Dublin. €14 for a drink. But anyway, or I love a strawberry daiquiri. But no, my pint experience, I like match day pints is great. I love that kind of, if you're on holiday, before you head out for the dinner. I don't like drinking with food. I like drinking before or after. I don't like, in Ireland we'd glorify having a big session. I don't like that. I don't like coming home and then being like, I'm going to be dying tomorrow. I like having a nice quiet few or whatever it is. And I think what really makes a good pint experience is there a good conversation with it. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like the All Ireland gone past there, like that, when there's something to celebrate, that kind of thing. So be that, like, I love a good wedding. I love a wedding. Have you ever seen the fans of Two Johnnies?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, the how to eat at a wedding. Yeah. Skip the soup, fish for the mains, that kind of thing. Yeah, I love that. I love when there's something really, I don't like drinking for the sake of it. I like when there's something to celebrate, all that kind of thing. Like, either match day or a wedding. Yeah.
Yeah, match day pints, I think, that's a good one. That
very good.
Was we had Eamon Duff on, and he was saying, actually, no, his we'll leave that for his episode.
Okay.
It will, won't it? Yeah. So we had seen that already. Yeah. I was like, what's the order these are coming out?
Yeah.
Would you rather fight 100 chickens or one horse-sized chicken?
It was not 100 chicken-sized horses.
It was, but I've changed it.
Oh, sorry. So 100 chickens.
Yes.
Everyone was expecting to say a manto.
Yeah. 100 chickens.
Little horses can't hurt you. So I'm like, okay, what about actual chickens then?
Yeah, 100 chickens or one horse-sized chicken. See, my thinking was, put on a pair of steel-toe boots and just kind of start gerarding them out of the way. But there's 100 of them. And like, my thinking was, so again, this is one of the advantages of being one of the, like, again, not being the first guest. I thought about this. My friend was like, I thought too long about this. My friend, because thinking about your chicken versus the small horses, my friend was like, yeah, but 100 horses, they can still leap. I was like, yeah, but you know what? Like, I've never thrown a punch in my life. I can't fight at all. I was like, but you can probably get under a chicken. You can kind of get in. You can kind of get a bit of an uppercut. And I was also thinking, like, there's a chest. The base is weak. Small legs. If you can kind of get in and get a swipe in, but then like I hit the mic. The pecking power of a horse-sized chicken is probably something to behold. I'll go with the horse-sized chicken and hope for the best, and hope I can get
a one-on-one.
Yeah, one-on-one. You know the Family Guy clip.
The chicken.
Yeah. If I can get in, if I get that crocodile to help me. If I can get under him, I think I'll manage. I'll go with that. I feel like I'd be outnumbered by the small chickens. Yeah. But ironically, chicken in a restaurant is my choice as well. But yeah. Oh, chicken all the way.
You have to fight it out the back beforehand.
Yeah.
To get it out of the plate.
You can have it, but you have to kill it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Texas.
Kind of like that when you get the lobster at those big fancy restaurants. What's the last movie you watched?
Oh, last night I watched a film called Crime 101 on Amazon with Chris Hemsworth. Really enjoyed that. If I was to pick, not even a favourite film or a film I've really enjoyed, I'm a big fan of Quentin Tarantino. Django Unchained is unbelievable. Like, again, just the whole cast. But yeah, Crime 101 was the last one. I love a good action film. I love a good kind of turn your brain off and enjoy it. That kind of. I don't like when a film is a maths problem. I don't like when you have to try and like your Interstellar or they're great, but like Jesus, a day's work. You know. But I really enjoyed Oppenheimer there a couple of years ago because it's funny, like again with the degree in physics.
So that's literally a maths movie.
Yeah, but I was there. I enjoyed that. I love Cillian Murphy. But I was there with my friend, and he was like, "What's the physics behind this?" I'm like, Man, no, I don't know that much. Like, I can tell you the basics, like, but not this is too far. But no, I enjoyed that. Yeah, I love a well-directed film, but I also love like where you can switch the brain off, that kind of stuff as well.
Fans of John Wick movies, if you're an action fan.
Never seen them, but I know I have to because I'm a big Keanu Reeves fan. It is him, isn't it? Yeah. Like I have certain favorite actors where if they were like, I would watch Denzel paint the wall. Like, do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I like. I feel a cast like. Big fan of Rami Malek. Did you watch Nuremberg?
No, it's on the list.
Because I'm a history fanatic.
Yeah.
And Russell Crowe, unbelievable. Like, I'm a big fan of, like, I'm on a tangent now. Gladiator, loved both of them. Paul Mescal.
Did you like the second one?
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was actually going to bring about a revival of long hair. Because we've all had the fade since Tommy Shelby and all the rest. I thought Paul Mescal, because he's not he doesn't play big characters, because he was actually saying he had to kind of lose weight then for his next role. But I also found it hilarious that there's all these, they've all got Roman accents, and then Denzel is just himself. Do you know? But like, have you seen American Gangster? Russell Crowe?
Yeah.
Incredible. Anyway, I'm not going to tangent, but yeah, big film fan.
You're good. We'll talk about movies all the time. Huge movie fan as well. So
the only actually movie that I think I watched like on a Sunday, and then on a Monday I was like, I'm watching that again. I watched it like 2 days in a row.
I am the book. You are just the footnote. I can. My problem. I have a good memory.
I was going to say you can pull facts very quickly.
Man, I know. Like, okay, the Devil Wears Prada film. I've seen both. Men sleep on. I don't want to use the word chick flicks, but that's the term used. Fellas have to get past that. They're missing out on so many good rom-coms.
Yeah.
I could quote pages of that film. I could quote pages of Django. And the problem is, Heat, Al Pacino and De Niro.
Oh, I just watched it again about a month ago. It's so good. So good. They're doing a remake of that.
Are they?
Yeah. They have, what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio for one, and then they have Christian Bale for the other role.
Of course.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal. He's very, very good.
It's going to be unreal. This could be a full hour-long talk about movies, so we'll get into that separately. What is on your social media right now? What are you seeing on social media?
Good. So I'm very I try and keep the algorithm under wraps. So, you know, you can mark stuff as not interested or whatever. Like, again, I talk about this in schools a lot. Like, we have a lot more power over our social media feed than we realise. So, like, if I have any inkling that I don't like someone or something, unfollow, gone. Or mark as not interested. It's a history, stand-up comedy for one. Stuff about jerseys, the World Cup, obviously, all that kind of stuff. We'd say your mental health, your fitness, like, whenever your typical, like, you know, scam artists come on, like, no, not interested, gone straight away. So I try and keep it, But yeah, it's a combination of, we'll say, fitness, mental health stuff, bit of history, stand-up comedy. It's kind of a blend of those four. And like, I watch a fair bit of YouTube, and I try and keep it like, as soon as anything comes up that I don't like. So like, I watch a lot of like old football highlights, and then my YouTube goes, oh, here's Wimbledon. I'm like, no. I'm not a sports fan. I'm a football fan. So yeah, I try and keep it to those like sport, stand-up comedy, history, stuff with mental health. Like, I actually have a big interest, because I have an interest in history. I have an interest in like business and economics, and do you ever have a guy called Gary Stevenson? Yeah, his book, The Trading Game, is very good. So yeah, it's a combination of all that, all my kind of special interests, I'd say. Yeah. All that kind of stuff.
That's good. Because I like when people kind of have that set, like, so your social media is your actual interests, and not just like, oh, I see whatever I see, because like, you're probably not.
Oh no, I have it curated. Like, my hot take is a good Saturday night is a World War II documentary, and a glass of wine perhaps, but yeah, I've been there. Is he out cheating on me? No, he's watching a video about the fall of the Soviet Union or something.
Yeah.
I'd be a big fan of that, like World War II as well. Did you see the new Tom Hanks 20 episode series?
Out soon.
It's out. Well, I have it.
Is it out?
I
haven't seen it.
I have it on the dodgy box.
What's that?
Ivan.
I did watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay,
it's a good movie. It's interesting, and it offers a great different perspective on like how the Normandy landings and all that happened. Yeah. But I was laughing at what a fella had said. It's like, I don't understand how like people watch so many documentaries and movies on World War II. Does the ending change?
But yeah, it's a different perspective, 100%. Who's your man in that? Andrew,
the Irish guy.
Yes,
he was
Andrew Scott. He's brilliant actor.
And
really good.
And your man who played
Priest.
Your man,
yes, in Fleabag.
Yeah,
what a show!
Great show,
brilliant show.
Your man who played George of the Jungle was in it as well. What do you call your man?
Who's your man that played George? Oh yeah.
He was in Brendan.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's good few other actors in it. Your man who, I don't know any names of people, but your man who's in Band of Brothers, Ginger fella. He was in, he was the terrorist in that thing as well. You know I'm terrible with movies.
Wait, not Donald Gleeson.
No, not an Irish guy, an English guy.
Okay.
What do you call that thing with the C? Anyway,
Philip's behind the curtain. You're
This
being
guy.
like,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
exactly who you're talking about. Last one we'll get for you, Conor. What is one book you'd recommend every young man should read?
I think for everyone, like Atomic Habits is a big one. One of the problem is a lot of people will read it and then they don't implement what they see. I think the big thing is just from that book, it's the idea that small habits build up and small bits of progress. I was mentioned to you before off air, this is perhaps a bit niche, but Alchemy by Rory Sutherland, because he's an advertising expert, but it's very much a book about thinking differently and we'll say looking at things through different lenses. I love that kind of stuff. I'd go with those two. Yeah, because one of the things I find with like self-help books, they're all kind of saying the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
Which is
with a different tag on it.
Yeah, which is kind of like, you know, like if you asked this question 3 years ago, I'd be like, oh, read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'm like, fuck off. Like it's if you can just do the simple stuff right, you know, to say about playing Gaelic football, if you can catch a ball and solo right and run with it, that's your foundations. Like I made a video there recently about you know, the whole morning routine thing, and it's gotten bastardized out of proportion. It's like, yeah, wake up, have a cup of coffee and have a piss and go. Like it'll be grand. Like it doesn't have to be a day's work in itself. So yeah, I like Atomic Habits because it's that thing of like, if you do the simple things right over and over again. And that one thing I love about, you know, like Duolingo, like learning a language. Duolingo is a great, well, some people argue whether it works or not, but it does that very well of gamifying that process, and you have to show up every day, which is the same with your fitness or whatever it is. You mightn't be perfect, but if you can show up every day and do a bit, that's the making of it. Yeah. So I'd recommend those two books.
Yeah. If you've ever seen I don't know if is there a video on it. Paul O'Connell's got a great video when he was with the Irish rugby team on being brilliant at the basics. He was like, if 100%. We will be successful if we're brilliant at the basics. And it's like, tried and tested, is true with every situation. If you're brilliant, I always say it to clients as well, like if you're brilliant at the basics when it comes to like your nutrition, your training, whatever, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just good at the basics and you're doing it consistently. Yeah. Same mental health, I'm assuming. In certain aspects,
and funny, the good thing about, and again, I've learned this myself, the one good thing about mental health is that what's good for the body is good for the mind. If you're looking after your body, it doesn't solve everything with your mental health, but it gives you a good base and puts you at a good starting point. Like as a doctor said to me about dealing with anxiety, he was like, if someone's very anxious and they're not sleeping enough, or they're living on caffeine, or they're not getting any bit of movement. Yeah, that's so. Like if you start with that, that can really help. So like the reason I was put on medication was because all that was intact, and we were still having problems. But that just last thing when you say there about being good at the basics, one thing I find, like when you look at fitness, as you say there, 98% is are you sleeping right, eating right, getting some movement. Like for the vast majority of people, the ice baths, the massage guns, there's no need for it, right? Yeah. But that's the fucking stuff that sells. And I remember being in school, and it was when massage guns first came out. I was like, oh, jeez, he got a massage gun. As if that will be an all-star next year. It's like, yeah, but that's the same fuckers having a breakfast roll and getting 5 hours sleep. The massage gun is for you're someone who wants that last 1% and they're going for the very top of whatever it is. Like, for the vast majority of people, you don't need that. But the problem is the basics are hard to sell. Do you know, and there's that thing of like, you know, did someone go viral with the basics, or did they go viral with, here's this fucking horse semen pill that will, you know, this kind of shit. Like, so it is, there's a lot of that. It's like, you know, if you can just do the basics right in be it learning a language. I found it myself even when I was a software engineer. It's with coding, it's a great example of, if you can't do the fancy shit until you've mastered, you know, the small if statements and whatever it is. So yeah, you have to start from the ground up with whatever you're doing. That's a big thing, 100%.
That was a monster.
Unreal episode.
That was
when I get going, I can't rein it back in. This is the
good though. That's what you want. That's what you want.
No, Conor, this was absolutely incredible, and I don't think this is the last we'll see of you on this podcast.
I hope. Thank you very much.
So much more to get into, but I think Philip's going to go. Philip's guy behind the curtain.
Sorry about that.
This work. SG Studios as well. I'll give them a shout out here.
Yes.
Thank them for how
beautiful setup. Yes,
it's a hell of a setup. We've been with them now for a couple of months, and they've been absolutely incredible to us. So. This has been the Two Eejits Talking Fitness podcast.
Three Eejits.
Yes.
Qualified Eejit over there. For if anything in this podcast resonated with you a little bit more than you feel like a podcast can help with, we'll put all the links to Conor and the work that he does with Bodywise below this. We'll make sure that all of that happens. And obviously, like, don't go to a personal trainer about, you know, potential eating disorders and stuff. Make sure you get
the right channels, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So this was the Two Eejits Talking Fitness podcast with Conor Nolan. This is Eejit 2, Keith O'Rourke.
See you later,
And
guys.
one, I did that in the wrong order and all.
I was scared.
Keith's editing this one here, so he's going to put my link here, and he's going to put something here to tag someone somewhere.
I'll put something there.
You put something there. We'll catch you in the next episode.
See you later, everybody.